It's an award for a member who has made a substantial contribution to further the goals, the mission and the work of the Institute. Awardees in the last few years have included Chuck Case, Leonard Gilbert, Ros Mason, Dr. Takagi. The award for 2022 is presented to Thomas Felsberg, who is with us this evening, and it will be presented by a prior recipient of this award in Don Bernstein. So if I could ask Don to come up and say a few words.
So I do have a few remarks about my friend Tom Felsberg. I'm very honored to be able, John is taller than I am. I'm very honored to be able to present this award, the Founders Award, to our colleague and friend Tom Felsberg. I'm glad his family is here to see it as well. So welcome to our humble dinner. As John said, it's bestowed to a member who, through their efforts over the years, has made a substantial contribution to further the goals, the mission, and the work of III. The award is actually given in memory of Bruce Leonard, our founder. It's quite fitting that this award should be awarded to Tom here in Bruce's hometown. I think Bruce would really love to know that Tom received the award here. And no one could be more deserving of this award than Tom. We all know that Tom is one of the leading insolvency practitioners in the world, and that he is the dean of the insolvency bar in Brazil. He's the founding partner of the firm that bears his name, a firm that's over 50 years old now. He earned law degrees from the University of São Paulo and from Columbia Law School in New York, and is on Columbia's Global Center Advisory Board. He has numerous publications, both in Portuguese and in English, and is a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Latin Lawyer and from the Global Restructuring Review. Tom has had a leading role in just about every large restructuring in Brazil for decades. And based on this vast experience, he also had an important role in the recent reforms in Brazil's insolvency law. Tom has been one of the most successful lawyers in the field because he has some very special qualities as a lawyer and as a person. Not only is his English flawless, which is really a benefit for someone like me, but he's also soft-spoken, he's always calm in the midst of chaos, and he is always rational and reasonable. That's pretty rare among our breed. Tom believes that the most constructive approach to the most contentious situation is to find a consensual solution. And that's sort of what we're about here at III. We're trying to find a way where people can cooperate, coordinate, and work together across borders. And I think Tom has made that the hallmark of his cases. He has a genuine gift for being able to get others to follow his lead in this regard. We've had some common clients, Tom and I, and he takes the calm but firm approach, and the client pays attention. So does the other side. One of our colleagues here at III summed it up perfectly. He said, even if the situation is very complex, Tom always provides an environment of relaxation. It takes the stress out. It makes things much easier, and it's not easy doing what Tom does. He also said, this colleague of ours at III, that Tom is always very kind, he's a charming person, he's a family man, and a good friend of his friends. And it's very lovely being with him, and I think we all recognize these qualities in Tom. So There are some things in particular that Tom has done for III, and some of you will remember these, and maybe some of you won't remember them. But Tom was a voice of reason when he served on the executive committee and on the board of directors during the difficult transition period after Bruce Leonard retired as the head of the Institute. It was a tough time. We were changing a lot of things about this organization. The founder didn't always agree with what we were doing, but he trusted a few people, including Tom, and for that reason, we were able to move the organization forward to a new period in its history. And we want to thank Tom for that. That was extremely important. It was important to us, and it was important to Bruce, too. He also has been a leader of our Latin American Regional Committee and has promoted its growth. And he's contributed to numerous substantive projects of the conference, of the Institute, and also he has been a regular fixture at our conferences, including in speaker roles. Most recently, Tom was a mainstay of our Thought Leadership Committee, which was formed to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And Tom in Brazil actually got a number of people involved in thinking through how to ease the situation there, and he helped us present the work product of that group globally. Tom is called upon by the Institute all too frequently for his help, and he never says no. Tom has been and is, in no small part, responsible for the Institute's success. One more thing. Tom led a prodigious effort to bring our annual conference to Brazil. He spent countless hours preparing for our arrival, only to be thwarted at the last minute by the pandemic. All of us thank Tom for this effort, and Tom, we will definitely get to São Paulo. Tom is a gentle lion of the global insolvency bar. He is a great lawyer, he's a great role model, a great friend, and he's made immeasurable contributions to this organization. And it's my distinct honor to present the International Insolvency Institute's Founders Award to our friend and colleague, Tom Felsberg.
So we have to get the head of the Institute up here for a photo then. Thank you.
No, I think okay, well, thank you so much for your kind words, Don. You know, I wish I could be all that, you know, it's fantastic. I'm really moved, you know. Thank you so much. Actually, I have to highlight that the period Don mentioned, which was the transition from Bruce Leonard to initially to Don and then to Jim Peck, was very rewarding for me, you know. Being constantly in touch with them and working with them is something I'll never forget, you know. That was one of the great experiences. I had two giants in the profession, definitely, you know, Don Bernstein and Jim Peck. So it was an honor and a great pleasure. I have to thank John Martin, III, and all you guys, you know, for this award. It's really very moving, and I thank you. I'm very honored, I'm deeply grateful, and it's lovely. And to be here and to see you all, I wish I could recognize each one of yours. This is the 22nd conference. We were together in so many, I think in most of these conferences, so you start to build up a friendship, which is something fantastic, so thank you very much. I wanted to tell you a little bit about an experience I had which really characterized III. In 2001, I did dabble, I did work a little bit in insolvency, but I got a call from Gordon Johnson. I guess you all know. And he said, listen, he was in the World Bank, and he said, listen, we want to hire you. And also Richard Levin, who is also an III member, because they had distilled the World Bank directives of a modern insolvency law. It was a huge work which Gordon Johnson and his group made. They talked with over 80 jurists all over the world, and they came up with these directives, which eventually became the guide for legislation of Fund Central. And basically he explained, listen, there's a committee in the central bank, they want to reform the Brazilian insolvency law. And they have hired us, the World Bank, to give them some advice on how this new project should be. The objective of the law then was to increase the recovery of distressed, of insolvent companies. And so I began a work which eventually took 4 years, and which ended in 2005 with the enactment of Law 1101, which Judge Carney so well described this morning, and which was the basis of the new modern insolvency law. However, I think we did great things, and some of the reports I handed to the World Bank about the effectiveness of the reform and the alignment of the reform to the directives of the World Bank were very positive. But looking back, we made a huge mistake. And the mistake was basically to believe that if you create an atmosphere of understanding among debtor and creditors, they will know the best solution to resolve the insolvency. And we wanted to diminish the role of the courts, because the system had developed into a court bureaucracy which was very ineffective, and we didn't have judges such as Judge Carney, who understands deeply insolvency law, and now we have a group of judges who are extremely competent and so on. And I think many of the US judges here know the Brazilian judges and they respect them. But at that time, we thought that we should kind of form a certain, how should I say, a balance between the debtor and the creditors. And this would evolve in a matter of negotiating, of creating an atmosphere where these private matters between the debtor and creditors could be solved with as little intervention of the judiciary. And that was a mistake. It was a mistake because what did develop after that is a huge litigation, Restructurings in Brazil started to take 3-4 years. I remember once I was representing a group of US investors in one of these SPOs, for oil storage and extraction. It was a large deal, it was about $500 million investment. And one of the bankers, one of the fund managers called me up one day and say, listen, do you have something like laws in Brazil? Is there a judiciary? So And the thing was that this balance we tried as a committee to establish and to insert in the law didn't work, because the option was either we accepted a plan the debtor had submitted, or we had to liquidate the business, and the law was not efficient in terms of liquidation. So the creditors had, in many cases, not a great choice of options. You know, either they accepted something they didn't want, and that increased the whole litigation of the creditors wanting to stay out of the proceeding of the restructuring, which also didn't help in terms of efficiency. But just not to take too much of your time, Law 14,112 came, and there was a huge shift in what is happening now and what was happening before this law was enacted. And what the Congress did there, it transferred the power to decide insolvency matters to the creditors, as actually happens all over the world. And by transferring this power to the creditors, it's underway now a culture of trying to, under the leadership of the main creditors, to establish ways to resolve insolvency, which is the purpose of the law anyhow. So what we're seeing in Brazil is very creative, and we'll have a luncheon tomorrow of the Latin American, where I know Judge Carney already explained some features of the reform, according even adopting the ancestral model law. But basically, this is a huge shift in the profession, and I think it's a positive shift. I think now, you know, the creditors have the right, but also the obligations related to solving insolvency matters. And the culture is slowly absorbing this, and some substantive changes are definitely occurring already. But I think John gave me 7 minutes, and I don't have a watch with me, so I apologize if I went beyond it. But most of all, I want again thank you all. And mainly I want to thank my wife, Malu, and my children here represented by Gabriel, and his lovely wife, Yasmin. If they weren't with me, I wouldn't be here, so I'm deeply grateful for that. Well, thank you very much.